Welcome to another collective conversation. I'm your host, Mike Brewer, and today we are joined by Jesse Stein, Global Head of Real Estate for Airbnb. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Mike, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And you're in one of my favorite cities in America. I know we were speaking a little bit before we got started here. So, how's the weather out there?
Honestly, it is a beautiful day in Northern California. So we live about 20 miles inland in a place called Alamo. So I go to the city often, but my wife and I live out here with three little girls and, coaching sports and living the Bay Area lifestyle.
I love it. I spent some time out in Foster City, and so yes, I'm a little bit jealous. In the same respect, it is a nice day here in Atlanta as well. So, well, Jesse, let's start out by just having you maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then this program that Airbnb has put together. I know it's been many months since release, but just catch our listeners and our viewers up as it relates to what's happening.
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. I joined Airbnb right before COVID. Most of my career was in the private equity space, in the real estate private equity space, doing hotel transactions mostly. Led a company called Kimpton Hotels till we sold it to Intercontinental. Did some hotel investing, and then decided to join the dark side, if you will, right before COVID. I would fly around to all these cities, and I would just think to myself, "There's a lot of cranes." And a lot of these cranes were actually multifamily developments getting built. And I always in the back of my mind was thinking, wow, if Airbnb could figure out a way to partner with multifamily, it's a real opportunity for both. And so I joined Airbnb and tried to come up with a plan on how we could drive the core business of multifamily. So we've been working on it for a few years. And last November, we launched Airbnb-friendly apartments. And what Airbnb-friendly apartments is at its core, it is a partnership with some of the largest landlords in the country where we are now marketing their buildings to our consumers for free. And in return, those landlords are allowing the residents that live in their communities to host part-time in accordance with local laws or whatever the building rules are in that community. And we provide the building owners with the tools and the transparency to ensure that the residents in their community are living up to those standards of the local laws as well as the building rules and ensuring the residential community stays just that, residential, and it does not convert into a hotel, if you will. So we could dive into that, but it's very, very high level, a summary. So from an owner perspective, you're getting the free demand, tapping into our consumers. You're getting control and transparency over the residents in your community they're hosting. And I forgot to mention this. Some of our partners are also taking a commission on the nights booked. So if a resident hosts for $100 a night, some of our partners are taking 10 to 20% commission. So they're sharing in the upside of it, of the short-term rentals as well.
That makes sense. So, just curious, I guess it's being received. My guess is that it's being received well so far in the multifamily space from multifamily ownership groups.
Yeah, the multifamily owners are loving it. The partners that we launched with 175 properties in over 25 geos across the country. Every one of our partners we launched with has now expanded the program, or the overwhelming majority of the partners we've launched with has now expanded the program to other assets. They are loving the program. We've also added new partners since launch. So the real estate owners are loving the program. The consumers are loving the program because historically we would have consumers reach out to us like, where can I host? I'm in a rental. My apartment building doesn't allow it. So now the consumers are able to find these apartment buildings on Airbnb and they're moving in. And cities are loving it as well because we're all faced with this housing affordability challenge across the board. And it's just the cost of living in general. And it's really two factors. One, income levels, and two, rents. Rents are what they are. Supply is what it is. We all know we need more supply. We're helping the individuals that live in these buildings host part-time to make extra income to either apply it to rent or apply it to student loans or travel or whatever it may be. So all parties are excited, and we're obviously excited because now we're partnering with the real estate owners that historically we have not had the best relationship with. So we are excited about that as well.
Yeah, being on the ownership side, I completely understand that last remark. I,
Let's peel
so I
that
wanted
onion
to
a
ask
little
you.
more.
So I think it's fantastic what you're doing. So I want to go back to a remark you made. You took about 2 years to develop this program. What were some of the major hurdles that you had to overcome to actually get owners to be agreeable to this kind of format in their buildings?
Well, one, I think, I think we're kind of like laughing about it a little bit, but there's been historically, a little bit of tension between Airbnb and the real estate community. And, overcoming that tension and building that trust, I think is paramount to the success for all stakeholders. There has to be that
Sure.
trust. So we listen to the community, we listen to what their perceived challenges are, what their real challenges are. And we wanted to build the tools, and we have built the tools to ensure that whatever the challenges are taken care of in the tools. An example, a lot of multifamily owners don't want individuals renting 4 units and creating a hotel in their building. So
Right.
one of the things that our partners are now doing are enforcing night limits. So if you live in San Francisco, you're only allowed to host your primary home up to 90 nights a year. So in the lease addendum with the resident, because every resident signs a lease addendum with their landlord, they ensure that they're only going to host 90 days. And then we provide the tools on the back end to provide that visibility to the landlord to ensure that they're living to those standards. So a lot of the challenges are really driven by people potentially taking out more units than they should and running some of these businesses. And so ensuring the fabric of the community stays residential was paramount. The other thing we had to think about was, in any building, not everybody wants to host. Maybe 10% of the people want to host, right? We really have to build the tools for the other 90% because we want to ensure the other 90% are happy as well. And so bringing the entire community in was absolutely crucial to the program and ensuring that they're comfortable because what we want is a community that stays there longer. We want people to be
That's
happy, renew, God willing, stay 4 years, not 2 years, whatever it may be. So we had to build all these tools and think through all this. And this is all feedback that we got from our partners initially. And honestly, we got a lot of it right, but there's always room for improvement and we're improving every day and we're iterating every day. So those are some of the items. And also, honestly, policy is different in every market. Every market we launched in has a different policy. And San Francisco's 90 nights, LA is 120 nights, Dallas there's no limit, but all of our partners have limits because they want to ensure it stays residential. So it's really a complex web of challenges that we're fighting every day. Or I look at it more as opportunities than challenges, honestly.
that makes sense to me. Now, correct me if I misstate here, but I believe, let's say it was 4 years ago, plus minus, Airbnb built an apartment community in Florida, Orlando, I think, somewhere like that. I'm just curious if some of the lessons incorporated into the platform came from ownership in that building and the way that you ran that.
Well, those buildings were actually owned by Brookfield. Airbnb, and one of them is still owned by Brookfield, who is a partner, and we're scaling with them. But there's definitely lessons learned, right? That was the first one. And, there's definitely ideas and concepts that came out of that we understood and we learned. And we're continuing to scale with Brookfield and we're adding a handful of properties and we're taking those lessons and we're building it into our product. So it is getting better and better every day. But yeah, 100%. That was the first. That was actually predated me. So I can't take credit for that one. But yes, 100%.
I am curious, maybe scratching my own itch here. The accessibility of the building in my imagination is a little bit of you have these, 4-story or 26-story or whatever, but getting into the building and allowing somebody that isn't on a lease, right? I mean, governed under the lease. How did you address that issue?
Yeah, access across Airbnb. Like we have a phenomenal user experience on the app, one of the best in the world. But what it really comes down to is getting in the front door. And we have integrations with a lot of the smart locks, and some of the buildings that don't have the smart locks, we have partnered with groups like Key Cafe and others to ensure that there is access. The host provides the key in the Key Cafe, or there's integrations with the smart locks because there's two access points in a lot of multifamily: the front door of the building and then the front door of the unit. So we've got to ensure that we're integrated with all these groups, and we have a handful of integrations now, and we are continuing to implement new integrations. Obviously, with smart technology, it's a lot more seamless. With the buildings that do not have smart technology, we utilize things like Key Cafe at the moment for those integrations and those access points. And then
Okay.
third, I would say, Mike, it also depends on the building. Some of our buildings, I'm taking, for example, right now, a Class A building, high rise, San Francisco. Like the guests, actually, there's a 24-hour concierge there, so they can work on those buildings as well. It's more so the buildings that are not staffed for 24 hours, like the garden style suburban properties that are using more of the key cafes, if you will.
That makes complete sense to me. We have a building in Midtown Atlanta that fits that mold of 24-hour concierge, so I could see where that would work very efficiently. So you launched with 170 properties. You've had some organic growth within those 170 or those partnerships that make up those 170. I have to imagine their expansion plans. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm going to ask you. You are our expansion plan, Mike. Well, how are we doing?
I love it. I stepped right in that. Awesome.
That was like a softball, Mike. Come on.
Hey, look,
No,
I'm all about making the guests on my show look really good. So there you go.
no question. I mean, we are honestly, Mike, we're blessed with our existing base of owners. We've already expanded to new owners, and we're looking to expand further. We have a team of business development folks that are regionalized that should be calling you if they're not. We are looking to expand. I mean, when you take a step back, like 175 properties that we launch with, roughly 50 to 60,000 total units. The addressable market in the rental space in the US is 45 million units, round numbers. So
Yeah,
there's definitely expansion plans. We are focused on the large NMHC owners initially,
sure.
but we are also adding partners. We have a partner in LA that owns one 42 unit building, and so we've partnered with him as well because we believe like all residents in apartments or rentals should have the same ability as people that own their homes to host part time to keep up with the cost of living. So we are definitely expanding. And it's not like we're trying to expand and convert an entire apartment building into a hotel. It's not what we're trying to do. But if people
Sure.
want to host and want to earn extra income, we believe they should in accordance with the building rules and local laws. So we are definitely looking to expand, and we have expanded, and we're putting out some press over the next couple of weeks. So we'll kind of outline a little bit of our expansion plans as well.
I like that. I'm interested. Hopefully, I can articulate this question in the right way. So, I have to imagine there's some sort of groundswell influence on the side of the consumer to propel a program like this. And I'm wondering if there is sort of if you could delineate between the consumer driven aspect of this versus an ownership interest in it, like you're marketing on this side, but I imagine there's a consumer that's saying, hey, is there a difference in those two things that you can speak to?
Yeah, I think a great way to outline this is if you go to Airbnb friendly, and you find Airbnb friendly, there's a little thing at the bottom that says join the wait list for the consumer. And what has been really, really powerful is since we've launched, we've had roughly 2,500 consumers join the wait list. And the wait list is really for consumers that live in a market that does not currently have an Airbnb friendly apartment. And what was really intriguing to me, and this is like a last second addition that I just threw in there, is like, well, we're only in 25 geos. Like, we're not in Omaha right now, just making up a city. Maybe there's some consumers in Omaha that want this, and how do they find it? How do they find it? Because historically, they've literally just emailed us. And so we put this waitlist function. So roughly 2,500, I think it's 2,500 last I checked, consumers have joined the waitlist. But what's mind blowing, Mike, is it's in over 600 cities in the US. It's not five cities, it's over 600 cities in the US. So consumers want this. And it's really driven by the cost of living today, right? The ability to make extra income, but it's also driven by people are more flexible. Like COVID was a shock to the system. You and I are both doing these calls from home, it looks like.
That's right.
Even though you and I probably still go into the office every once in a while, we're probably not going in 5 days a week. And
Right.
if we're not going in 5 days a week, we're more flexible. And we've all been cooped up, so we all want to travel more. But traveling's not cheap. And I still have the fixed expense of a mortgage or a rental. Why not monetize it and make some extra money to keep up with the cost of living or keep up with your travel lifestyle? So yeah, the consumers are passionate about it as well. And that's really what kind of really, really showed it to me, the strength of the consumer. We always got emails. Our partners got like, hit up by the residents, like, I want to host, like stuff like that. But when you put this wait list there and you get 2,500 people that sign up in less than 3 months, and it's just mind blowing. It's like, it's not just, the building you and I were talking about, the high rise in Midtown Atlanta or Buckhead. It's, we have a building in Addison, Texas that there's a handful of folks there, call it a dozen or so, that are hosting 5 nights a month. And it's like, Addison, Texas? Yes, Addison, Texas. And then, one by the Houston Medical Center that's getting traveling nurses in there and people are hosting. And then we have one in Dallas right by DFW. It's flight attendants. It's the use cases are up and down the spectrum. So it's really, really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's just as you were talking through that, it brought to mind there are a number of things in our lives, be it our homes, our vehicles, maybe some other things that set vacant and unused periodically. And in this sharing economy, which I imagine is sort of what is the main driver here, why why is there not this opportunity to share? You know what I think is interesting. Sorry, I didn't finish that thought, but I've I've often thought, if, and I don't have a word to articulate this, but if a building can provide opportunities for the people who occupy to participate in revenue, right? To participate in the economy of the building, the economy ecosystem of the building, that seems like a win-win-win all the way around for consumers, for building owners, et cetera. You talked about rev share. Walk us through the details of that.
Yeah, so fairly simple. Let's. I'm just making up numbers right now. So in Atlanta, let's say a resident in unit 3207 of one of your buildings hosts for $100 a night. We collect all the money on Airbnb. Everything's credit cards. Depending on what the commission is and what the landlord wants to provide, the landlord just sets a commission. Is it 10%? Is it 25%? It's up to the landlord. The money then, $90 would go to the resident, and if it was 10% commission, and then $10 would go to the landlord. What we see our landlords doing is they're overseeing the program and they're actually using that money to enhance the community. So it's not like it's just total profit for our landlords. They are making probably a little bit, but for the most part, it's going back into the community because it's really focused on that 90% that's not hosting in that building, right? And ensuring that, it stays nice. So it's really, really simple. We collect the money. We have bank account for the host, being the resident, and we have a bank account for the landlord. And then once the booking occurs, we send the money to each party. So it's a very simple back end process and technology we built for that.
I like that. I so it brought to mind. I'm taking a little bit of a left turn here. and I'm going to refer to some companies that I'm not sure if they're even in business anymore, but like Pillow or others that sort of had this hotel component. When you're doing a lease up in a building, you could, in essence, have this
Yeah.
company take a large swath. Is that a model that Airbnb entertains or
We
is
are not
looking at in some
actively.
way?
Oh, sorry. We
Not to
are
worry.
actively. We're. I don't know why that turned that off. We are not actively in that space. What we're really focused on is helping the individual that actually lives in the unit host
Yeah,
their
yeah,
apartment to keep up with the cost of living. There are other groups out there that do that. I think like Placemaker or Y Hotel is a great example of that. I don't know about Pillow, but I don't think Pillow's around anymore. But that is not something we're focused on because at the end of the day, it's like it does kind of make sense from an economic perspective for the landlord, but there's a lot of friction getting a
yeah,
CUP, getting a CUP for a hotel for 18 months. And, you know, the real estate community has been very blessed with leasing velocity over the last couple of years. I know
yes,
it's been interesting. There's a lot of supply coming, so maybe it slows down a little bit. But what I always find interesting in the multifamily space is, you go from 97% occupancy to 94, it's like doomsday. Like in the hotel space, if I was 94%, I would be on cloud nine. Now, obviously, interest rates are a different environment, insurance, all these other things, but we're not focused on that specifically. We're more focused on enabling the residents that live in the community to host their home part time. That model is operationally intensive because you're running a hotel for 18 months. So that is not something we're focused on at the moment.
makes sense. So I'm imagining from my perspective the main thing, and I think the sort of I'll use your word friction or maybe frustration with Airbnb in the past is that landlords didn't have visibility into. So you'd have people move in, they would start doing this hosting on their own. So in my imagination tells me that your platform has a way to identify those people in those buildings specifically that might be acting outside of the program, so to speak. Is that correct to assume
Yeah,
that?
so every time a resident tries to create a listing in one of our buildings, the first thing a host does is put in their address. And if that address matches the address of our partners' buildings, the resident has to sign terms of service that allows for their information to be transferred to the landlord's information. And then we have a dashboard of all this information for the landlord. And the landlord has the ability to approve or disapprove the listing. And if the listing doesn't meet the requirements of the landlord has the ability to say no to the listing. Furthermore, if that host breaks a building rule, we have an entire account management team that works with our landlord partners. They let us know, and then we enforce the building rules on behalf of the landlord. So there's a million details around this, and if you want to learn more, Mike, or the listeners want to learn more, please reach out. But there's a million other details around this as well.
Excellent. Yeah, that was the one thing that I think we purchased a building a number of years ago in Atlanta, and we had that immediately right off the bat. We identified who knows, I'm going to say 25, a lot of people who were doing Airbnb, and it ended up becoming a really a bad problem for us and in the way of the building rules being broken all of the time and a lot of disruption, and the people who lived there that didn't do that were very frustrated by that. So, and it took a long time to get that fixed. So
Yeah, we actually have a building in Atlanta that came onto the program because they were having that problem, and now the building is actually doing really well, and the residents are very happy, and the building owner is very happy as well. So, like, this is really an opportunity to work together. I look at it more as an opportunity than a challenge, Mike. Everything is an opportunity. It's just a matter of how is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? So we hear that a lot, and that's one of the reasons we built this program.
I love it. Just it seems like a good place to sort of draw to a close here in terms of I'm going to play off your opportunity. I think there is opportunity here that does benefit, I think, all the constituents in this equation. And I want to make sure that we share with our listeners and our viewers a way to get in touch with you and or anyone in your organization that you think would be able to help them learn more.
Yeah. So I could share an email, a website, but if you Google Airbnb friendly apartments, you'll obviously be able to find Airbnb apartments and also Airbnb.com/multifamily. That leads you to our landing page where we have all of our business development folks around the country. And obviously, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and I can put you in contact with the right folks or just email me directly at jesse.stein@airbnb.com.
Jesse, I appreciate all of your time this afternoon. I know you are a busy guy and you have sounds like a very busy weekend coming up. So I want to be respectful of that. And thank you for investing a little bit of time with the collective community today.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Yep. For the rest of you, we will see you next time on Collective Conversations.